Marcus Thompson sat beside his son Derek on the small patio of their modest home in Oak Ridge Estates. Derek, a 19-year-old young man with cerebral palsy, loved helping his father prepare their weekly Saturday barbecue. The sizzle of the grill and the aroma of carefully marinated meats were a cherished family tradition, a moment of pure joy that connected them beyond words. The morning had started early, with Marcus carefully preparing everything to make their barbecue special. Derek's enthusiasm was infectious despite the challenges his cerebral palsy presented. With careful, deliberate movements, he helped season the meat, his face lighting up with each sprinkle of spice. Marcus watched with pride, remembering the countless therapy sessions, the endless challenges they'd overcome together. Oak Ridge Estates was a meticulously maintained neighborhood, the kind of place where every lawn was perfectly manicured and every house seemed to compete for some unspoken standard of suburban perfection. Marcus and Derek's homes stood out slightly, not for any lack of care, but for the genuine life that seemed to emanate from their small patch of property. Where other houses looked like museum pieces, theirs looked lived in, loved. Derek's wheelchair was positioned carefully near the grill, close enough to feel the warmth but safely away from any potential splatter. Marcus had modified the chair himself, adding special supports and a tray that allowed Derek to participate in their cooking ritual. It was more than just preparing food. It was their way of connecting, of creating memories that transcended Derek's physical limitations. "Almost ready, son?" Marcus asked, his voice warm and gentle. Derek's response was a broad smile and an excited nod. His speech was sometimes difficult, but his expressions were always crystal clear. Today was their day, just the two of them, enjoying their weekly tradition, unaware of the storm brewing just beyond their peaceful moment. The neighborhood was quiet, save for the occasional distant sound of a lawnmower or a child's distant laughter. Rows of identical houses stretched out on either side, their uniformity broken only by the occasional splash of a different paint color or a unique garden. But Marcus and Derek's home felt different. It was a sanctuary of genuine love and resilience. Marcus carefully turned the steaks, the meat sizzling and sending up aromatic clouds of smoke. Derek watched intently, his eyes following every movement, every flip of the spatula. These were the moments that defined their relationship, simple, unspoken, profound. They were more than just father and son. They were partners, survivors, a team that had weathered more challenges than most families could imagine. Little did they know that their peaceful afternoon was about to be dramatically interrupted. The carefully cultivated tranquility of their Saturday ritual would soon be shattered by an unexpected confrontation that would test their strength, their dignity, and their understanding of community. Karen Greenwood had been obsessively monitoring the neighborhood from behind her floor-to-ceiling living room windows. Her home was a testament to her rigid perfectionism. Stark white walls, minimalist furniture, and an array of environmental activist pamphlets strategically placed on her glass coffee table. At 47, she had made it her personal mission to police every aspect of Oak Ridge Estates, with a particular focus on what she deemed environmental infractions. The Thompson family had long been a target of her scrutiny. Marcus, a black veteran working as a mechanical engineer, and his son Derek didn't fit into Karen's narrow vision of the perfect neighborhood. Their home, while well-maintained, showed signs of lived-in warmth that contrasted sharply with the sterile perfection of surrounding properties. But today, the barbecue was the final straw for Karen. As Marcus stepped inside to grab more seasoning, Derek remained alone by the grill. Karen had been watching, her fingers drumming against the window frame, a half-drunk green smoothie forgotten on her pristine white kitchen counter. The moment presented itself. Marcus was gone, and Derek sat vulnerable in his wheelchair. She burst out of her front door, her designer vegan leather shoes clicking against the perfectly maintained sidewalk. Her yoga pants and organic cotton top seemed to vibrate with self-righteous energy. "You can't do this," she screamed, her voice cutting through the peaceful afternoon air. Derek looked up, startled. His cerebral palsy made quick movements difficult, and the sudden confrontation caught him completely off guard. Karen stormed closer, her face contorted with a mixture of moral outrage and something darker, a deep-seated anger that went beyond environmental concerns. "Do you have any idea how much damage you're doing?" she ranted, her voice rising with each word. The carbon footprint of that meat, the animal cruelty, environmental destruction. She was practically on top of Derek now, her body language aggressive and intimidating. Derek tried to speak, to explain, but his speech impediment made it difficult. Tears of confusion and fear began to well up in his eyes. Karen's tirade continued, a toxic stream of accusations and insults. She spoke to Derek as if he were a child, her tone dripping with condescension. "Your father should know better," she spat. "Killing innocent animals, destroying the planet, it's disgusting." Her words were carefully chosen to wound, humiliate. She saw Derek not as a person, but as a target, vulnerable, different, easy to intimidate. The neighborhood seemed to hold its breath. A few neighbors peeked out from behind curtains, but nobody moved to intervene. Karen had a reputation for being vindictive, for making life difficult for anyone who crossed her. Her position in the HOA gave her a sense of unchecked power, a belief that she could say and do anything without consequence. Derek's wheelchair sat motionless, a silent witness to the verbal assault. His hands gripped the armrests, knuckles turning white. The barbecue continued to sizzle behind him, a stark contrast to the toxic confrontation unfolding on the patio. The smell of grilling meat, a symbol of family tradition and love, now hung in the air like a challenge to Karen's self-righteous fury. Marcus returned to find a scene of absolute devastation. Derek was trembling, tears streaming down his face, his body tense and withdrawn, a posture Marcus knew all too well. It was the same defensive stance Derek had developed during years of physical therapy, of medical treatments, of facing a world that often seemed designed to challenge his every ability. "What happened?" Marcus asked, his voice calm but laden with an underlying current of concern. Derek struggled to speak, his cerebral palsy making communication difficult during moments of extreme stress. Fragments of words tumbled out: Karen, mean, scary, each syllable a Herculean effort that broke Marcus's heart. The barbecue lay forgotten, the meat now cooling on the grill. Smoke still curled upward, the ghostly reminder of the peaceful moment that had been so violently interrupted. Marcus knelt beside Derek's wheelchair, gently placing a hand on his son's shoulder. Years of experience had taught him how to read Derek's nonverbal cues to understand the depth of his son's emotional landscape. Before Marcus could fully process the situation, the HOA security vehicle pulled up. 2 guards, Tom Reynolds and Mike Garcia, stepped out, their uniforms crisp and official. Marcus knew them by sight. They'd been fixtures in the neighborhood for years. But today, something felt different. The way they approached suggested they had already formed an opinion. Karen stood nearby, her posture rigid and triumphant. She was speaking rapidly, her hands gesturing dramatically. "Harassment," Marcus heard her say. "Completely unacceptable behavior." Her voice carried the practiced tone of someone accustomed to being believed without question. Tom Reynolds approached Marcus with a notepad, his eyes already clouded with judgment. "Sir, we've received a complaint about a disturbance," he said, his tone professional but distant. Mike Garcia hung back, watching Derek with a mixture of pity and discomfort. Marcus took a deep breath. He was no stranger to navigating systems designed to work against him. As a black veteran who had fought for his country, he had learned to choose his words carefully. "My son was simply sitting outside," he explained, his voice steady. "He was enjoying our family barbecue when this woman approached and began verbally attacking him." Karen scoffed. "Attacking? I was simply explaining the environmental impact of meat consumption. Someone needs to teach this young man about responsible living." Her words dripped with condescension, a toxic blend of environmental moralizing and barely concealed prejudice. Derek had gone silent now, a defense mechanism Marcus recognized. His son's body was rigid, his eyes fixed on a point somewhere in the distance. Years of medical challenges had taught Derek how to disconnect, how to survive when the world felt overwhelming. His security guards seemed more interested in Karen's narrative. Marcus could see the familiar pattern emerging, a white woman's word taken as gospel, his son's experience dismissed. The barbecue grill stood as a silent witness, the cooling meat a stark reminder of the moment of joy that had been so brutally interrupted. Mike Garcia pulled out his incident report form, his pen hovering over the blank page. Marcus knew that the words written here would shape the narrative, would determine how this moment would be remembered. Derek's disability, their race, Karen's apparent social standing, all would play a role in how this story would be told. The HOA investigation quickly became a labyrinth of bureaucratic manipulation. Marcus found himself navigating a system that seemed designed to protect Karen's interests at every turn. Walter Henderson, the HOA board president, was a retired corporate lawyer with a reputation for maintaining the neighborhood's pristine image at all costs. Derek's therapist, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, became a crucial ally. She meticulously documented the psychological impact of the incident, creating a comprehensive report that detailed the trauma inflicted on the young man. Her professional assessment painted a stark picture of the encounter's consequences: increased anxiety, heightened social withdrawal, and a significant regression in Derek's hard-won social confidence. Marcus spent countless hours gathering evidence. As a mechanical engineer, he approached the situation with methodical precision. He collected security camera footage from neighboring houses, interviewed witnesses, and compiled a detailed timeline of events. His military background had taught him the importance of documentation, of building an irrefutable case. The local community center became an unexpected source of support. Reverend James Mitchell, a longtime civil rights activist, heard about the incident and began mobilizing community resources. He understood the intersectionality of Derek's experience, the compounded challenges of being both black and disabled in a system that often marginalized both identities. Karen, meanwhile, doubled down on her narrative. She began circulating emails to HOA members, painting herself as an environmental crusader being unfairly targeted. Her social media posts carefully crafted an image of victimhood, suggesting that the Thompsons were attempting to silence her advocacy. Each post was a calculated move designed to garner sympathy and isolate Marcus and Derek. Legal complications mounted. The HOA's initial response was tepid at best. Their investigation seemed more focused on maintaining peace than seeking justice. Marcus discovered a troubling pattern. Karen had a history of similar complaints against other families of color in the neighborhood. Microaggressions documented, complaints filed, but never truly addressed. Derek's medical records became a critical piece of evidence. Years of documentation showed his vulnerability, the challenges he'd overcome, and the psychological impact of such confrontations. Dr. Rodriguez's report became a powerful tool, highlighting how Karen's actions were not just a simple misunderstanding, but a deliberate act of intimidation targeting a young man with a disability. Community lawyers began to take interest. The local chapter of the ACLU reached out, seeing in Marcus and Derek's story a broader pattern of discrimination. They offered to provide legal consultation, recognizing the potential for a landmark case that could address systemic issues in HOA governance. Marcus spent sleepless nights preparing. He knew the fight would be long and challenging. Each document, each piece of evidence was a shield for his son. Derek would sit beside him during these late-night preparation sessions, his presence a reminder of what was truly at stake. The neighborhood watched and waited. Some neighbors began to take sides, whispers and conversations happening over fences and during morning walks. The incident had exposed fault lines in the community that had long been papered over with polite indifference. Karen's actions had torn away the veneer of suburban harmony, revealing the complicated dynamics that lay just beneath the surface. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Jennifer Martinez, a software engineer who lived 2 doors down from Karen, had been quietly collecting her own evidence. Her home security system had captured multiple incidents of Karen's aggressive behavior, creating a digital trail that would prove instrumental in exposing the truth. A detailed timeline began to emerge. Jennifer's footage revealed a pattern of harassment that extended far beyond the Thompson family. There was Karen confronting a Latino family about their excessive landscaping, challenging an Asian American couple about their traditional cooking, and repeatedly filing frivolous complaints against families of color. The local news caught wind of the story. Investigative journalist Michael Chen began digging deeper, uncovering a troubling history of Karen's behavior. He discovered that she had been fired from her previous job at an environmental nonprofit for creating a hostile work environment. Multiple former colleagues came forward, sharing stories of her aggressive and discriminatory conduct. Derek's therapist, Dr. Rodriguez, provided a comprehensive psychological assessment that became a turning point. Her report detailed the profound impact of Karen's actions, explaining how her verbal assault had triggered deep-seated trauma in Derek. The document was a powerful testament to the real-world consequences of casual cruelty. Social media played an unexpected role in amplifying the Thompsons' story. A video of Derek explaining his experience, posted by Reverend Mitchell, went viral. The raw emotion of Derek's account, his struggle to speak, his visible pain, resonated with thousands. Comments poured in from people with disabilities, people of color, and allies who saw themselves in his story. The HOA board found itself under increasing pressure. Walter Henderson, once seemingly immovable, began to realize the potential legal and public relations nightmare brewing. Internal emails were leaked, revealing previous discussions about Karen's complaints that suggested a systemic bias within the organization. Neighbors who had previously remained silent began to speak out. The Rodriguez family, who lived across the street, came forward with their own experiences. The Kim family shared documentation of similar encounters. A pattern of systematic harassment began to crystallize with Karen at its center. Forensic analysis of the security footage revealed critical inconsistencies in Karen's initial report. Her claims of harassment were directly contradicted by video evidence. Frame by frame, the truth became clear. Derek had done nothing more than sit peacefully, enjoying a moment with his father. The local Civil Rights Commission became involved. They saw in this case an opportunity to address broader issues of discrimination within homeowners associations. Depositions were scheduled, and Karen's past began to unravel under professional questioning. Marcus found himself at the center of a growing movement. What had begun as a personal fight to protect his son had transformed into a community-wide reckoning. Activists, lawyers, and community leaders began to see the case as more than just an isolated incident. It was a referendum on systemic racism and ableism. Derek, initially traumatized, began to find his voice. With the support of his father and community advocates, he started to speak about his experience. His courage became a beacon of hope, transforming a moment of victimization into an opportunity for genuine change. The final HOA board meeting was unlike any the neighborhood had ever witnessed. What typically would have been a quiet, bureaucratic affair became a packed event, with community members filling every available seat. Marcus sat beside Derek, the presence both a statement and a testament to their resilience. Walter Henderson, the HOA board president, looked visibly uncomfortable. The evidence against Karen was overwhelming. A meticulously documented trail of harassment, discriminatory behavior, and repeated violations of community bylaws. Her once impenetrable reputation had been systematically dismantled, layer by layer. The board's decision was unanimous. Karen was not only removed from her position but also banned from holding any leadership role within the HOA for 5 years. More significantly, the board mandated comprehensive diversity and sensitivity training for all HOA members and security personnel. It was a sweeping change that went far beyond a simple disciplinary action. Derek became an unexpected catalyst for broader change. With the support of Reverend Mitchell and Dr. Rodriguez, he began speaking at local schools and community centers about disability rights and the importance of understanding and respecting differences. His speeches, sometimes difficult to understand due to his cerebral palsy, were nonetheless powerful and moving. The legal aftermath was substantial. The Thompson family received a formal apology from the HOA, accompanied by a significant financial settlement. But Marcus saw the victory as more than monetary compensation. It was about restoring dignity, about showing Derek that the world could be just. Community transformation followed. Neighbors who had previously been silent began to speak up. The Rodriguez family started a neighborhood diversity initiative. The Kim family organized cultural exchange events. What had begun as a traumatic incident became a catalyst for genuine community healing. Jennifer Martinez, the software engineer who first provided crucial evidence, worked with Marcus to develop a community accountability app. The tool allowed residents to document and report discriminatory incidents, creating a transparent system of oversight that went beyond traditional HOA mechanisms. Derek's journey of healing was profound. With the help of his therapist, he began to process the trauma of the incident. Rather than becoming bitter, he chose to channel his experience into advocacy. He started a support group for young people with disabilities, creating a space for shared experiences and mutual support. The local media continued to follow the story. Michael Chen's investigative series won several awards, bringing national attention to issues of discrimination within suburban communities. Derek became a symbol of resilience, his story inspiring countless others to speak out against injustice. Marcus reflected on the journey with a mix of pride and reflection. What had started as a simple family barbecue had become a turning point, not just for their family, but for the entire community. He watched Derek interact with new friends, speak at community events, and live with a confidence that seemed unbreakable. As the years passed, the neighborhood began to change. The rigid uniform facade gave way to a more vibrant, diverse community. Karen's expulsion became a cautionary tale, a reminder that prejudice and harassment would no longer be tolerated. Epilogue. On the anniversary of that fateful barbecue, Marcus and Derek returned to their grill. The aroma of seasoned meat filled the air, a symbol of resilience, of family, of triumph over adversity. Derek's laughter, once silenced by fear, now rang out freely across the neighborhood they had helped transform.